Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Conquerors Blade. So today I wanted to take a look at the first of the new Mongolian units. I call them the Mongolian Sons of the Steppes, is what they're called. So the Namkhan Archers. I'm pretty much there with the other two as well. I've just got a few bits to finish off to get these ones done. But I've kind of stopped on these for now just to focus on grinding these guys up a little bit. So let's have a look at them. I'm only up to level 10 at the moment. I kind of want to keep these guys going, but considering it's something that a lot of people keep asking about, I kind of wanted to touch on at least some of the initial units to kind of take a look at what they look like, see what the stats are about, kind of see what the playstyle's like. These I've quite enjoyed. They're actually a decent archer unit. So why is that? Well, I kind of like the look of them. They do look very Sons of the Steppe-esque. They do look like steppe archers, so they look kind of cool. But they actually have pretty decent stats, and they have a nice little ability that goes with it. So to take the base stats first, armor piercing, armor penetration is actually quite high. Over 1,250, 1262 is a decent amount of armor penetration. You're going to be penetrating enemy units' armor the bulk of the time, so you're going to be applying a good amount of damage. Combine that with a similar level of actual piercing damage, means that you're going to be getting decent base hits. That's something that a lot of archers actually lack. And is really, really critical because it means rather than, say, for example, a lot of the guys where, have 900 armor penetration or something where they're going to be landing hits of about 100 on anything, the lightest units, these guys are going to be hitting for, 600, 700 and critting for over 1,000. And that's nice. That means they're doing good amounts of base damage. They don't have particularly great defense. Their hit points pretty low, not horrifically low. I think we'll get over 2,000 by the time we get leveled up a little bit more, and I might throw a doctrine on there or something to add a couple of 100 hit points. But yeah, pretty low on health, but not critically low, and they are a 32-man unit. So what about their special ability that makes them unique, which is what I was saying earlier? Well, it's the fact they get bleed damage. Here, serrated arrow. So it's actually, it initially started off as a cooldown timer, kind of like poison arrow on some units. Like the Black Dragon Archers, it used to be a timer, but now, following just a little update patch, it's a toggle on-off ability. And when you toggle it on, it seems that most of the arrows, but not quite all, inflict bleeding damage, or at least have the percentage opportunity to inflict bleed damage, which is nice, because, it's basically a running tick, and it's an upgradable running tick. When you start to get down, increase bleed duration for 3 seconds. And you get a bit further down, you get increased maximum stack of bleed damage. So you can start to really stack up, almost like 10 seconds worth of bleeding damage with these guys. Then when you start to get right to the end, you get another 50 and another 50, 100 points of ticking damage increased to the bleed damage. So by the time we get to the end, these guys actually really do a reasonable amount of damage. Combined with the fact they're a 32-man unit, they don't fire super fast, but they're not slow in firing. And yeah, it makes them feel nice, kind of like fire archers in a way, but without the stunning effect of fire, just with the bleed tick. So it makes them nice. I quite like them. I'm quite a fan of these guys. What sort of drawbacks do they have? Yeah, say they don't fire super fast, and the lack of health, and the fact they've only got a area attack. They're not as good as Prefecture Archers, even with the Prefecture Archer nerf we've just had. I at least in terms of range v range, they don't do that amazingly, unless you can get them positioned nicely and sort of get the first couple of shots off. Then you start to get a chance because you start to diminish the enemy unit, and with your large unit you can sort of get away with it. But by and large, if you were having an Archer duel, Prefecture Archers would be the better choice. Same against sort of lighter and medium armoured units. I think these guys probably excel against the more heavily armoured units because of their higher damage, higher base damage, plus the fact this bleeding tick introduces sort of that ability to apply that even ticking damage to enemy units. And that's really all we've got to say on them for now. I think we're just going to hop into a battle. We can see the kit cost. It's actually pretty reasonable, 1,400 for a 3-star unit kit. That's not too bad. I'm quite pleased with the unit kit costs. And yeah, all in all, quite a nice unit, leveling out a max at 16. So anyway, so let's actually hop into some gameplay now and kind of see how we get on with these guys in the field. So, we have loaded into our first siege battle. I've not really had any super amazing games with these guys, but they just kind of a Stadfest unit that seems to work well sort of across the battle. So not long after spawned in, I saw some of these guys here on the wall, so I just let the guys have a little bit of shots. You see some of the damage hits we're getting, critting up to sort of almost 2,000 on some points. And more than anything, you can see the bleed damage, which I find to be really quite amusing. Particularly then as I wander off and one of them still ends up dying as he wanders off around the corner from the bleeding. He obviously bled out and, and collapsed around the corner. So it's kind of a cool little ability that those little ticks can still do damage even after you've stopped shooting. So then I was sort of pulling around to the front. I'm thinking I really wanted to pressure the A point more. So I was trying to get myself set up here. I know there's still got quite a few enemy units up at the top of this ladder. So I kind of wanted to get set up and then thought, well, the archers might be able to fire up on the wall a little bit like they did earlier, hopefully. An ally goes in for a trebuchet strike, so I'm being a little bit conscious about, don't want to be stood there when that hits. It's actually not a bad treb, actually got quite a few kills, I think, by that ally there. As you see, my guys are shooting up. They're struggling a little bit with the arc. I might be a little bit too close, to be honest, with my archer units. I should maybe put them that little bit further back, and I think they might have worked a little bit better. Unfortunately, I get knocked off the wall, but thankfully don't really take too much damage, so I'm straight back up. So as we climb back up, the archers are still firing. They're still getting some kills on some guys. They're just struggling a little bit with the arc. You can see the hits landing in, but that's kind of what I wanted to show with half of it is the how high the damage is. The base hits are always sort of that 700, 800, and then critting for like 1200, 1300 most of the time. They really are quite an effective unit. And you can see this guy sort of comes around here. Starts to get hit by some of the archers, all the shots go in, and he goes down. They do quite a decent amount of damage against enemy heroes, I find, even relatively heavily armoured units. Although I should say I have got an assassination doctrine on them, so that adds, I think, 85 damage or 95 damage to hero per shot. So it does, perhaps not that surprising that they do a decent amount of damage. So then we'll push up. I'm just thinking about capturing the A point at this point. This guy's just being a pain, but ultimately we managed to get him down and managed to get the bill hook on him. And I knew that was him dead. Bit of spam clicking and he's down. The wizard is wizarding no more. So then I'm just coming up on A point. I was kind of umming and ahhing what to do. Obviously I'd sent my guys back to the supply point by this point, which probably wasn't really necessary because we actually ended up capturing this supply point down the bottom without really much of a fight. But sometimes people make a really big stand on this supply point here, so it can actually be quite difficult sometimes to capture this. So I thought, I want to send them back to make sure we're well ammunitioned for this fight. But obviously, no fight actually broke out. So then I'm kind of waiting for my guys to come back a little bit. Obviously, a fair walk back from the supply point. They aren't actually slow though. They're not Imperial Spear Guards. They move at a decent pace and they come back pretty quickly. So it's not too much of a problem. So then as we're kind of pushing on, I'm thinking about, well, we've got to think about how we're going to help suppress the C point. I find it quite hard to attack the C point though, often on this map, because it's one of those where if enemy gets archers, they can counter archer quite easily. Sort of, particularly if I set up in the distance, you can see where that building is, then they can kind of shoot over relatively easily. So it can be quite a hard one to get yourself in a nice position, and that's kind of what I was thinking about this. Unfortunately, I missed that dual blade. Just went invisible just before I was able to get it locked in the poleaxe ultimate. But I mean, if that dual blade had become visible or locked me down right in front of my archer units, the dual blades would easily have got slaughtered by the ranged effect of the archers. It's just too much damage too quickly for a dual blade light armor unit like that to be able to survive. So we get set up a little bit on the edge here, but we start to take arrow shots in. You see, thankfully, because I said they don't have a lot of health, but they're not too bad. They didn't take, insta-death. They do actually survive an archer shot or two. I managed to just about get myself out of the way in time of the way that cavalry charge. Took a bit of safety. I think that cavalry charge really largely missed entirely, which was nice. It's kind of highlights the importance of a bit of situational awareness with archers, because it's very easy to get caught out with a cavalry charge like that. So we come back round the corner, start to apply a bit more damage. Those calves get stopped there. We just throw in a bit of some hits. Even against relatively heavily armoured calves like that, we're still hitting 700, 800 per hit. So they're really not too bad. Oh, and as I was saying about if a dual blades appeared right in front of the unit, there was one, and it got annihilated. You can't stand in front of these guys. They hit too hard. They're pretty accurate, and with the bleed damage stack as well, you just got no chance. You'll just go down really, really, really rather quickly. So we start to increase the pressure on the C point here, so I'm starting to move up a little bit more. Still kind of conscious about how I wanted to deploy my archers though, because it's kind of hard to know which angle to put them at, because I don't want to push them too far forwards that they sort of just get shot to death really early on. And then we actually get attacked in the back. And you can see all the bleed damage these guys have got on them and all the amount of hits we're getting. And we seem to critical quite a lot as well, particularly, well, obviously as soon as anyone turns their back, but also quite a bit friendly. So even against spear sergeants, these guys perform pretty nicely. I mean, obviously it helps. The fact you've also got like another 2 or 3 units of archers there as well. So it's, you know, not an entirely accurate representation, but they are quite effective against reasonably heavily armoured units. Or as effective as any of the other sort of decent penetration archers. So then it's just a fight for the C point this time, because I'm just sort of thinking how we're gonna get this one down, how can we sort of push around, and I'm kind of thinking about got the archers there, bring them back round, tried to push them up slightly, but I didn't know what the way there was going to be in terms of enemy range. I was also conscious that I'm kind of running out of ammo a little bit as well, but we are getting the cap on the C point now, so I'm pretty pleased about that. And you can see we just keep pushing up. We get interrupted a little bit, but since I think we're kind of onto the edge here now, I think we should be kind of good. Pushed up a little bit, thought I might be able to get some shots in. Every time you turn around, you see a few ticks of bleed damage going on. But we do get a cavalry charge here, but it doesn't really hit. It gets a few units down, but through a combination of sort of the allied Reaper units and sort of ourselves to get enough damage out quick enough to stop the work of the cav. But then I'm out of ammo. I need to push back. They don't have amazing ammo capacity. It does get slightly better with some of the veterancy bonuses level on once you get to sort of level 12s and stuff. But not amazingly so. It's still only 1200. They fire pretty fast, so it goes down. It feels like it goes down pretty quickly to me. Anyway, they're back at the resupply point. I'm getting them resupply back the ammunition, and I'm sort of letting them heal up slightly as well. And I'm thinking the best place normally for archers, or where I really like going with my prefecture archers, is the rooftop behind the supply point. You have to often fight to clear it out, but once you get it cleared out and get up there, it can be a really nice spot. At least I knew it worked well with prefectures. I wasn't sure how well it was going to work well with these guys, because prefectures have quite a high firing arc, and also with the arrow rain, it gives you really it just deploys really nicely. It means they fire not just in the circle, but things surrounding the circle. The area attack with any other archer just doesn't seem to work quite as well. The people just don't seem to function quite right with it. So I was a little bit concerned about how well this was actually going to work. I felt we had a pretty decent game so far. I've been able to provide a bit of support. They do decent damage. So we keep pushing up. I'm kind of a little bit hesitant. I'm trying to push up with my my archer units, but I'm also making sure I don't get sort of outflanked by someone. So we've got these guys at the bottom of the alleyway having a bit of a sneaky peek. You can see I'm going in with some of my shots. So these are against men at arms, you know, a decent unit, and you see we hit pretty hard. And you see they're still getting bleed damage even as they come in. And then between sort of us and the muskets, we just inflict really enough damage to take them out before they can even make it to the archer units. Kind of says a lot about the sad state of men at arms really at the moment, and a lot of the sword units like that. So we push up. And I'm thinking about getting up into position above on this platform. I don't want to go right to the edge normally, because I can do better with the by just shooting over slightly. And then we go for a trebuchet on the point, and then start looping some of my arrows down. Don't really land very many hits, and we start to take quite a few casualties quite quickly. The trebuchet does it works. It clears out that top point, which I was quite happy with. But you see what I mean? They just don't really hit very nicely. I know some of them are perhaps too far down the stairs, maybe slightly, but they just don't seem to really land much damage. I think sort of, sod this, I'm just taking too many losses for not really much gain here. So I decided to try and adjust my position slightly. Get a couple of shots going through the little alleyway. And I do like the fact that whenever you just randomly turn around, you seem to always find someone who's slowly bleeding to death because of the bleed damage these guys inflict. So they are pretty decent for that. So as they're getting their shots out, I'm sort of thinking where I want to go next. I was thinking really, in an ideal world, I wanted to flank round the back a little bit here, sort of out to this point. There's quite a lot of stuff here though, so I didn't really want to go for it straight from the off. I was a little bit nervous, and I thought someone may end up coming through this archway here on the right. Which a spear looks at it. I think it looks like it comes through on the horse. I miss, and it's gonna go. Bit of a little guided tour of this inside here. So I was thinking about where to go. And then I saw this friendly cav coming in. I thought, perfect. It's just what I want. As soon as they go in, we get a few shots in. You see the sort of damage we do to enemy archers. You know, it's pretty nigh on one shot to them. But that's the enemy units there dead, and I thought, right, we've now got this little back point cleared. We can start to push our archers up. They can maybe throw a bit of fire support in from the actual point, which of course they actually do. So I come in, just starting to get involved now in a bit of hand-to-hand. I've sort of forgotten about the archers. Words. I have slightly forgotten about the archers at this point. I'm just kind of leaving them there to do their own thing. I was kind of mostly thinking about capping, trying to avoid getting tripped, and just trying to keep the enemy heroes off the point. Someone's got a higher tier Watcher set up. Dual Blades proving to be quite troublesome for me. Keep on pushing around, and we're slowly capping the point, but we obviously haven't got very long left. We've only got 1 minute 40. I tried to keep a bit of an eye on those guys there, and thought, oh, we're probably going to get hit here. It's probably best to pull back. But then, of course, they're out of ammo anyway. And then I sort of thought, oh god, what's the point? You know, they're a half strength unit. They've got 14 or 13 now. 13 people left. I thought, well, best to go and get a fresh unit. I was thinking about maybe getting my Imperial Spear Guards. I saw this guy, this longsword, going to town. I thought it was actually a unit of archers. If it was only a unit of serfs, it almost wasn't worthwhile. And particularly the amount of time I lose here, I think this is probably a mistake in a way. But we do, in the end, it's really tanky, but we do kill him in the end. And then I'm thinking, right, back to the supply point. We need a new unit. I was thinking about getting my Imperial Spear Guards. I actually changed my mind just before I arrived because I thought I'm going to run out of time. 54 seconds, 53 seconds. It's not really enough time to do a lot. Let's grab the Pike Militia. At least they're fast, and they'll get to the point on time. And then I'm thinking, blimey, 45 seconds. We're not going to cap it because we're still only half away. I'm starting to fret a little bit at this point, get a bit panicked. So I'm now trying to rush back. I tried to have a quick look at the map. Just slow me down. Got the unit coming with me. We're starting to recap, which is good. And then by the time we actually get here, it looks like we really have pushed the bulk of the enemy team off. And the team are doing exactly the right thing because they're pushing beyond the cap point and preventing the enemy from actually getting close. And boom, we actually get the victory. Really quite pleased with that. It made for a nice game. You know, not amazing kills with the archers, but they are just a nice, all-round, decent unit. Not amazing, but pretty decent. Bit like fire archers. That would be my summary. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conquerors Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.